Veterans Day means a whole lot of things to me. I'm a veteran, served in the Navy for 4 years, was in some places where I got shot at, and felt I was doing some good. And my father was also a career military person, and most of my young life was spent in the military also as a kid. But it's an important holiday because veterans are people who fight for our country and protect all of us and keep us free.
Hello and welcome to Heroes. I'm your host, Steve Lambert, and today we have 4 very special guests. Today joining us we have Ms. May Payson, a veteran of World War II. She was a Navy nurse and she's past commander of the Millis Legion.
Thank you.
Also joining us we have Mr. Vincent Gannon. He's also a past commander and the military order of the Purple Heart, correct? And moving on down, we have Mr. Bobby Blair. He's also a past commander of the American Legion, Post 47 in Holliston. And down the far end of me, we have Mr. Tom Wanders, who is a relative, a brother serving right now, and possibly a future Marine. How's everybody doing today?
Doing fine.
Pretty good? Why don't we start off with you sharing with our viewers a little bit about yourself. We'll start with you, Mary, of just how long you served, just a little bit of how it was.
I was in Chicago, Illinois, going to school for a postgraduate course in surgical nursing when Pearl Harbor happened. I just gotten out of high school, went to get post work, and after I got through there, I went up to the Great Lakes and I tried to get in the Air Force, but I was too tall, so I went into the Navy without even asking my parents. But I think the main thing here was such the difference between then and now for young people was that World War II was a very patriotic war. Everyone was, it's just amazing, and all of you know that, how much people gave out, not just in the service, but in all our country, because we weren't going to tolerate that. So I went into the Navy, and I was most of the time assigned to where there were training programs, because people get hurt when they're learning to fly an airplane, because I was usually in charge of the surgical problem. And I really liked the service very much. I really did. But we talk about leaving home, and I had never left home at that time, except to go up to Chicago. And I had a sister in Chicago that I could go visit. Was you have a family as soon as you get in the service. And the other service people are your family. And I can always remember, what am I going to do, Christmas or Thanksgiving, and I won't be home? It wasn't necessary. Everybody was in the same boat, and so you have a family when you go into a service, even no matter what your age is. So I was in 3 years, and I enjoyed every bit. I learned a lot in the service, and so I'm very happy I went into it for that experience. Thank you.
We move down to Mr. Gannon.
I was in for just over 3 years. I volunteered for the Corps of Engineers in 1942, but I was in college at the time, and they said, stay in college and finish the semester. Then they forgot about me. They didn't call me till April.
Wow.
To activate me in April of 43. I went to Fort Belvoir in Virginia, the home of the Combat Engineers, which was a great place. What we did, in the morning we would build a bridge, in the afternoon we would blow it up. So anybody has a bridge around here needs to be blown up. See me. Then I took a test at Millis High School, and I got high enough score, so I became a cadet. They sent me up to Washington, D.C., which was like paradise. First to Georgetown University, then to Catholic University, studying civil engineering with a view to being, commissioned, and we were to go to Germany and rebuild the buildings after the war. But the war got tough because we didn't know it, but the Americans knew that Hitler had a jet engine on his airplanes. We didn't. and he was also working on the atomic bomb.
Right.
It wasn't general knowledge, but it is now.
Right.
So they took us out of the engineer corps, and I was put into the 406th really infantry regiment down in Texas to train to go into combat.
Combat, right.
And when we got there, we were called the Rapid Defense Force, but we weren't very rapid, actually. That was kind of a
So you
joke.
had a little more experience in the engineering than the combat at first. And then,
Well, we had good combat training at Fort Dix, but
Right.
then I got into combat, 4 months of it, in Holland and Germany. I was then in the hospital 3 months, and they didn't quite know what to do with me because my leg was bad. I couldn't limp around and do combat, so I said, I know what you can do. Put me into the Air Force Band, which they did. Sent me to Paris.
Wow.
And I thought I had died and gone to heaven because I was then 20 years old.
All right.
I was there, and then I was under General Spatz's headquarters. Then we all moved to Wiesbaden, Germany, which is where the headquarters is now.
Right.
So I had 3 distinct units. I enjoyed the engineer corps. Nobody enjoys combat. And I had a wonderful time in the Air Force Band. And I came home, you know, on a high note,
All right.
back to Millis.
Yep.
That's
to
it.
Millis. That's good to hear. All right. How about you, Mr. Blay?
I'm from Holliston. I'm presently the commander of the American Legion there. I'm involved with sending parcels overseas over to Afghanistan and Iraq. It's something that we began 3 years ago, right after the Iraqi war started, and we also sent parcels to the 31st Combat Support Hospital in Baghdad, which is now manned by the 44th Medical Command. Pretty soon we'll be switching that over to a company, Company B, the 181st Engineers that just left last week out of Milford.
Wow.
So we'll be doing a drive for things to put into care packages to
Yep.
send over to them.
Excellent. I understand, Tom, that you have 2 brothers serving right now.
My brother John's currently in Iraq, and my brother Joe's currently in Cherry Point, North Carolina.
And now, were they graduates here at Millis High School?
Yeah, both my brothers graduated from Millis and went on to college and decided that college wasn't for them. And they worked a while, but then they both decided to join the Marines.
Now, did your family? Do you have any other older relatives serving?
Well, my father was a Marine in Vietnam, and my grandfather was in the Navy during the Korean War.
Did they play some type of influence on your brothers' choice?
Yeah, definitely my father with the Marines. Then they kind of like, that's how they chose the branch that they did.
I really got it.
basically.
Now, did your family have any influence when?
I suppose it did. My grandfather was in World War I. My father was from a family of 6 boys. They were all in World War II in Korea. I went, interestingly enough, my brother went to Vietnam as well. Ended up in the same place that I was.
Oh, wow.
Different time. And my younger brother.
Now, were you glad he ended up in the same place as you? Or?
No, there's a special story to that. He was an MP, and
Oh.
they happened to be going through the files, and
Right.
my name happened to come up.
Yeah,
So,
right.
and my younger brother joined the Navy and was in the Middle East.
Oh.
So I suppose it did.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, my father served in World War I, but he was lucky for only 6 months because the war was over, so he didn't have to go overseas. I had 5 uncles in World War
Wow,
I,
5 uncles.
and a grandfather served in a New York regiment
Did your
in
5
the
uncles?
Civil War, so that's, yes.
Wow. Did your 5 uncles join by choice, or?
I don't know whether they would, I think they did, because
Yeah.
a couple of them were in the Navy, they volunteered. One uncle was in the Corps of Engineers. So I think, let's say 2 or 3 of them volunteered, and maybe
Yeah.
1 or 2 got drafted.
Right. How about you, Mary? Did your family have any type of influence on you joining?
Yes, I had 2 uncles that were in World War I. And I have a brother that was in World War II at the same time I was. But I would like to address myself some to remind people that women are veterans too. Because when I went in service, I got $80 a month. That's what I got. And I wasn't considered an officer, although I had all the could, go to the officers' club and go to the swim pool and all that sort of stuff. But for the ladies now, they have much more opportunity and good opportunities if they're thinking about going to service. Because see, when they started having the WACs for the Army and the waves for the Navy and so forth, which the government decided to do this to bring the women in, so the boys could be let loose to go about up to the front. So basically, I had a big choice there when I was in. I had all these men, and I was the only woman, except the nurses were the only girls there. But now then, as you know, not only do they have service people, secretaries and stuff, but the women are now are flying planes. They're doing all sorts of things. That was their choice.
Right.
And of course, the pay is much better now too. The other thing I would like to be sure to understand that you get a lot of benefits when you leave the service. I wanted to go to college. I had been to college, and I've always wanted to go to college, so I went over. And I sat down beside somebody at Framingham State, and he had a blue slip, and I had a white slip, and I said, "Why do you fill out a blue slip?" He said, "Well, I'm a veteran. I don't have to pay tuition." That's how I found out.
Wow.
For any state school, I could still go without paying tuition. I could use up all it. For one, at first, there was, if you were out of the service 7 years, you got no help for education and so forth. But now then, there's all kinds of opportunities when you get out for education. And also that you could also travel around a lot. As I said, you have a family, and they are in the service. But also, I learned a lot when I was in the service. You have I ended up being an anesthetist, and I don't do it, didn't do it in the service, but I was trained that under supervision of the doctor at the big hospital in San Diego, California. All the fellows were coming back and so forth. And because it was such a patriotic war, we had a lot of well-known doctors coming in to help out. There was one from Washington, D.C. that was just marvelous, and there was a hospital named after one in Texas because he did plastic surgery. He had the biggest hands of anyone I ever saw, and he could take the littlest stitches. And then so I learned about these. The one from the dentist that I remember, they weren't told to come to service or anything. They came in.
Well,
and there were a lot of people like that.
Now,
Okay.
Mr. Wanders.
Thank you very much. But remember, girls, you have an opportunity if you're interested.
Right. I mean, the role of females in the war, over the years, it's changed a lot. Now, Tom, do your brothers, how do they stay in contact with you compared to?
Like, usually we'll get a phone call.
Right.
And, like, the longest period that we won't get one is, like, up to 3 weeks. But sometimes if they're, like, on a big base, they can go on computers and we can email them and stuff like that.
Right.
But
Technology is also a huge change.
It's
so.
usually a phone call, though.
Now, Mr. Gannon, obviously there were no computers to send instant messages back then, so how did you keep in touch with your family, or if you chose to?
We did it by what we call V-mail. We would write a letter. That letter would be sent to our headquarters and would be photographed
Right.
and sent by airplane to the United States. It took quite a while, of course, but we were able to keep in
Right.
touch. It wasn't too easy in a foxhole to write a letter,
Right.
but we managed sometimes
Yep.
to do it. But we felt very remote, and we were in for the duration of the war plus 6 months, and that seemed like forever sometimes, especially when things got tough, when it looked as if the Germans might even win at one point.
Right.
And we said, oh my God, we're in here for a lifetime.
Right.
That was depressing, but I'm glad these guys have a better system.
Yeah, a lot easier. And you were telling me earlier that technology has obviously changed in many ways, and you were mentioning something about how they would move different things across.
Well, that was moving supplies Now I watched the pictures from Afghanistan and Iraq. Paris was liberated in August of 1944, and then General Patton broke out. Everybody knows he just broke out with the tanks, and he needed gasoline, food, and ammunition, and we didn't have helicopters,
Right.
you know. So we used GMC Jimmy trucks,
Right.
2.5-ton trucks, and I volunteered to drive. I was sitting in the mud in St. Pierre-Église, waiting for heavy equipment to come in,
Right.
my bazooka, which I didn't have at the time. So they said, well, you want to volunteer for the Red Ball Express? I said, yes, I would. And we did that for 21 days, and we drove from Cherbourg to Kherson in Belgium. We drove night and day. One would drive and one would sleep. We didn't stop.
Right.
Well, we stopped for 10 minutes every 2 hours, you know.
Yeah.
And once in a while, we got strafed by a German plane, and we'd get out and get under the engine, which was the safest.
Do you feel that the length of the war could have been different if the technology was different, like what we have nowadays? Or
Yes.
do you think there could be a different outcome?
If we hadn't had that Red Ball Express, the war would have been lengthened by 6 months
Right.
now, or maybe even a year.
Right.
Getting that equipment up there was that important, and I have to
Ah.
give credit too to the black units. Most of the transportation units were black soldiers. The Army was totally segregated.
Yep.
But there just weren't enough of them to do it. So they asked some of us white guys to help them out, and we did.
That's excellent.
They still kept us segregated. They made sure that we didn't
We-
get to a rest area the same time they did. Imagine that. But that's the way
That's
the Army
obviously
was.
changed.
So it was great fun. It was one of the fun things
Right.
that I did. And as one of my friends said, hey, a guy could get killed around here. But I obviously didn't.
Right. Mr. Blair, do you think that technology, obviously it's different, that when you were fighting that there could have been a different outcome, or it could have?
The war I was in, I think, was more or less political.
Right.
I don't think, I'm sure it would have made some kind of different outcome, but for the most part, it ended up as almost a stalemate.
Right.
But I find technology is great for this war here, especially when I'm sending packages or something like that.
Yeah.
And I can get on there and email and say, what do you need?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I think the thing that people overlook when they're sending packages now is the small things. To put in a newspaper. Sure, people in Afghanistan or Iraq can get online and look
Right, to see
anything up,
exactly
but
what
there's
they-
nothing like
Right.
looking at an advertisement. I think after 6 months, you forget
Right.
what an advertisement
No-
is,
no
or
kidding.
even the sports page. So,
Yeah. Now, Tom, obviously your brothers are still serving now. Do you feel that, or do you know if they feel any certain way about the troop support here at home? We do the best we can, but do they say anything about support there, or how they feel?
They
about
say
it?
that support definitely helps them.
Right.
It's hard being over there and having a good morale, but
Right.
receiving packages and letters and stuff really helps them out.
Yeah. And excuse me. How about you, Mr. Blair? Was the troop support when you fought? How was it compared, do you think, to today? And
at the end of my tour, I happened to be the battalion mail clerk for an artillery battalion. And I could see, especially at Christmas time, guys would get packages at Christmas time. The rest of the year, not so many packages. It was a long, drawn-out war. That's why I believe in, packages and letters and whatnot is, just like Tom said, super important.
right. And you mentioned to me earlier that just on last Memorial Day, you had something going on with signs, I believe.
It's a project we've done over in Holliston for the last 3 years.
Oh.
It started right after the war. It came out of a tribute that we had done for the victims of 9/11. We put out 3,000 flags, and we thought, what are we going to do with the flags afterwards? And,
Right.
we started putting up the names of those killed in Afghanistan and Iraq. The first year there was 147.
Yep.
This past Memorial Day, there was 1,802 signs, which went for 34 miles. We have them up presently in Milford, Ashland, Holliston, and Sherburne, and those are just the guys that have been killed since Memorial Day to the present, and we've up
Unfortunately, it's increasing.
454 signs.
Yep. And how about you, Mr. Gannon? Excuse me. When you served, do you think the troop support was a lot greater than it is now, or?
Well, you know, it was a very different world. We have to remember that. It was 62 years ago. The United States was very different. Millis was very different. We had about 2,500 people in Millis. The town was totally in favor and in support. Before the war, we forget, can I do a little history? There was a thing called the America First Committee, which was very strong in Massachusetts. They were against sending any troops to World War II.
Right.
There was also a large communist party in the United States during and just after the Depression. Later, when they found out what Russia was really like, they changed their tune in the Soviet Union. People also, during World War II, had to give up things. There was rationing of gasoline, of butter, of bacon, you know, and certain types of food,
Right.
things that the services needed. People felt personally involved. Now they're not asked to do anything by the government, and I think that's a mistake. It's a mistake. They would support the troops even more than we do if they had to give up something every once in a while.
Right.
And that's only my opinion.
Right.
So we felt, you know, total support from them.
And Mary, you kept mentioning it's more when you served, it was more of a patriotic war. Why is that? And how do you feel that support was?
I still feel that strong about it. Very, very patriotic war. Because when so many people got killed over in the islands and so forth, everybody went behind it. But I agree with Vinnie. I can remember when I was a child and World War I and all this sort of stuff. But what we need to do now is do more here at home as much as we can. And I think people are doing it now. Now when I came from a small town, Mount Carmel, Illinois, and everybody at that time were, it was just getting out of the problems that they had, and the farmers are doing pretty good now and so forth. But nobody really sent, except at holidays, to the service people in those days, because they had too much to do at home.
Right.
And it was very interesting. My kid brother was about 12 years old, and I invited him to Jacksonville, Florida for a week to see on the base. And I didn't know how much it impressed him, but now he's a gentleman and big family and all that. And one of his kids said, "What was your best father? What vacation was your best?" "Going to see my sister."
Wow, really?
Which is
That
very
much of
nice.
an
I didn't
influence.
realize it affected him that much.
Right.
But I think there's a lot of things besides sending things. Writing things and sending notices, if you know people, is
Right.
much more important, because nobody's going to go hungry in the service.
Right.
But they do get very lonely, and I'm not, feel depressed or anything.
Well,
So yes, I agree. They should be more said about what we need to do for them.
Right. Well, here at Millis High School, we're putting together a package for Mr. Warren's brothers, and I have a portion of it right here. I don't know if we can see this on camera, but what it contains, if anybody would like to donate, you can send it to our high school. There's a little program going on. What we have here is some magazines and stuff. Is there anything specific that your brothers, you think that they'd be interested in?
The magazines, they like sports magazines, motorcycle magazines.
Right.
Any kind of food.
Some Oreos here. Millis t-shirt that was just donated from our athletic department. Well, I'd like to thank all of you for joining me here on this program. It's nice to see and hear your different thoughts and all of your experiences. It's good to hear this perspective from all different ages, and good luck to your brothers. And I'd like to conclude this program with some thoughts that some thoughts and thank yous that came from different faculty and students here at Millis High School, and hopefully we'll see some support from you guys. And if you could send some stuff into our little program here to send to his brothers, that would be great. Thank you.
I'm gonna be thinking about all the troops that fought and died for our country over the years. And I'm also gonna be thinking about my cousin who's over in Iraq right now. So, a lot of things come to mind when I think about Veterans Day.
Veterans Day for me, I'll personally be thinking about the son of a guy who works for my dad who was lost in the war about maybe a year ago. He was very brave, and I didn't personally know him, but I knew of him, and he's very much missed. And so I'll be thinking about him and also all of our fallen heroes in the war.
Veterans Day means to me another chance for a few more Americans to gain an appreciation for the sacrifice that was made for us to have the freedoms we enjoy today. That's what Veterans Day means to me.
Well, I think Veterans Day means to me that it's a day that we remember the men who were in the armed services and fought in the various wars that are still living. And we honor the commitment and the courage they gave to our country.
I think Veterans Day is just a time to remember all the people that have given their lives for this country, and that's really what it means to me. I just want to take a minute to think about those people during my day on Friday.
It's a great day to look back and reflect on the veterans who gave obviously a lot of their time and their lives to for our cause in various wars and conflicts, and we appreciate those people.
It means that we have the opportunity to thank those service people, both men and women, like my father and my husband, that were lucky enough to represent the United States, sometimes far away and sometimes close up, but they all served the country, and hopefully with honor, and they deserve us to say thank you to them. Some of them died, and we should really pay our respects to them.
Veterans Day is a day that they set aside to commemorate the men and women of our armed forces who have given their lives for freedom for our country, and to also remember those who fought or served their country during a time of war. That's what it means to me. It's the ultimate service for your country and to protect freedom and liberty.
Veterans Day is a time when we can stop and reflect, think about the freedoms we enjoy, and think about maybe people in our family or friends or other people we know who have given service as a veteran so that we can enjoy those freedoms.
Veterans Day is a day to remember those who fight for our freedom. We should remember them every day, but it's an extra special day that we should all think about.